What's up, Amazon sellers? Are you one of those people who are worried about the feedback you've just received on your Seller Central account? Then this could be the video for you, because today I'm going to share with you how to remove seller feedback from your Amazon Seller Central account. Stay tuned. Right, if you don't know who I am, my name is Thomas Parkinson, and I've been selling on Amazon now for the last 4 years. In the UK, I'm doing 7 figures in the last 12 months, and also in the USA, we're doing 6 figures, just started out this year. Now, hopefully for me in the near future, I'm looking to expand into another country. And if you are interested in learning how I've done it, what I'm doing, and what I'm learning on that journey, then do make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. That's going to notify you when I release more videos to share with you what my journey is and what I'm learning. Okay, so first things first, chapter 1, why is it important? Well, look, simply seller feedback reflects on you, your account as a seller, because it shows how trustworthy you run your Amazon business. Now, if you've got an overall high seller feedback, it's going to be looked at in a very trustworthy, positive light. And as a result, people might be buying from you when they're reviewing which sellers to buy from, if they are doing, choosing. Now, not only this, it is also important to Amazon. Why? Well, if there are 2 sellers priced at roughly the same price with the same fulfillment options, for example, FBA, then Amazon's going to give the buy box to the one with, or should we say, give priority to the one with the highest general metrics. And one of the things that we believe they look at in buy box rotation is your seller feedback, because that just shows how trustworthy you are as a seller on Amazon. Now, we've seen it time and time again. Sellers who have very little to few feedback struggle to compete against sellers who are who've got a high number of feedbacks and good feedbacks as well. So keeping on top of your seller feedback score can be super, super important. Now, this leads me nicely on to chapter number 2. What is the feedback manager? Whenever you go shopping onto Amazon, you can go to, view more sellers, for example, and when you're on any product, and you can see a list of the sellers. Now, each of them will have a feedback score. And when you go into that seller itself, you can see an overview of all their seller scores and obviously all the feedback they've had. Now, Feedback Manager is the Seller Central, i.e. back of house, which shows you exactly the same thing that the customer sees front of house, but also allows you to manage any negative feedback and what's going on. So quite simply, it's going to show you a list of all the actual feedbacks, and obviously you can see what the customers are giving you for each customer and your overall score. So if you don't know, and I'll just run through it now, quite simple, it's done on a star system. So generally, positive feedback is going to be a 4 or 5 stars, negative will be 3 stars, or neutral, will be 3 stars, and negative will be 1 to 2 stars. So that is the Feedback Manager and how you see it using the 5-point star system. So that leads me nicely to talk about chapter number 3, understanding, should we say, how to request for removal from your feedback or using Feedback Manager. After understanding what Feedback Manager is, and it's that back of house system, what I will say is there are times when buyers leave you negative feedback. Now, as a general rule, Amazon does not remove customer feedback, even if it's unwanted or the issue has been resolved, but there are some situations in which Amazon will allow you to remove, or should we say strike through, customer feedback. So you might be asking, what are the following scenarios when Amazon will either remove or strike through feedback? The first scenario is when feedback includes words commonly understood to be obscene or profound. So these include things like the F word, or your products are. And if you've got that, you can probably get them removed because Amazon does not want that on their marketplace. Now, secondly, the feedback includes, we say, seller-specific, personally identifiable information. It might be like their email address, names, telephone numbers. This information should not be available to the public and should not be seen in public, and as a result, Amazon will remove that. Now, the third scenario is that the entire product, or should we say, the entire review or feedback is a product review. Now, for example, it's about the product itself, not about the seller. So you can get that removed based on the fact that it's a product review, not a seller review, and ask them to move it to the product, i.e. getting it off you as a seller. Now, the fourth and the final situation whereby Amazon might strike through the feedback is if it's regarding fulfillment or customer service for an Amazon fulfilled order. So that's something that we'll talk about more in a bit. Okay, so today we're talking about seller feedback and getting it removed. So quick question for you, have you got problems with seller feedback right now? Drop me a yes or a no down below. And hey, maybe if you want to know what it is, maybe I can help you out. Drop it in the comments down below. Okay, so this leads me nicely onto chapter number 4, how to actually remove negative feedback from your seller or Amazon account. Let's go through it now. So basically, now you've understood the cases whereby you can get it removed, and we talked about them in a minute, is what I'll do now is jump on the computer and actually do a screen share of removing seller feedback. And this is going to be based on the fulfillment order, which is the most common one. Now, regardless of any of the, should we say, the factors, what you probably want to do is actually do this first. Even if it isn't a fulfillment order, just try it. Sometimes it does work, and also it's going to help you out getting it removed. So let's jump on the computer now and show you how to do this process. Okay, so here we are in the, should we say, in my Seller Central, and so we're going to go through getting feedback removed. So first things first, what you want to do is to go up to, should we say, performance up here, and we're going to go down to feedback. So let's go to that, the feedback, and then go to the feedback manager, which we talked about before. Now this is the old format, but no problem. So here we are, we're in. Now you've got a lot of feedback here, and you can probably see one of these has got a 3-star just at the top, and it says, there you go, 3-star, and there's the order number, and it was sent the wrong product. So we think, oh, possibly fulfillment issue here. Now, instead of the distant recipes, they said they liked it, but they said wrong product there, and the word sent, possibly a fulfillment order. So for us, we might think, hey, actually, let's try and get this removed. And even if it isn't a fulfillment order, probably try this. It does work sometimes, or quite a lot of times. So you want to come over to the little box on the right-hand side, click the drop down. And what we're also looking to do here is click on request removal. So let's do that. And it kind of talks you through like what's going on, what the situation is. So does this feedback include, obscene language, seller specific messages? And for us, we're saying, well, actually strike through because it's regarding fulfillment and customer service. So, something fulfilled by Amazon. So that's something we're going to do. So if it doesn't meet that, and I just try it anyway, it's no harm, is, they ask you the question, did this feedback meet any of the criteria above? What I would do is then go click yes, feedback there. So let's click on the yes, and voila, straight away. That isn't a person reviewing, that's automated. So they've reviewed the feedback and found it does not comply with our policy, so they struck it through. Now, the one thing for you to consider is right now is that will stay on the account, but it'll be struck through. And if you come down here, you can see here this review here, this says actually it's been struck through. So absolutely fantastic. It's still on the system, but it doesn't affect our score. So it's just something to think about. Now that's actually a different one. I don't know where the other one's gone, but you can see an example of it there. So that is the strike through process. And I'd recommend, regardless of what's happening, do that first. That's the most important thing. Now that leads me nicely onto chapter number 5, should we reply to negative feedback? In a recent poll we posted on our YouTube community, we asked this exact question: should you reply to negative feedback? Out of 99 people who replied, 57% responded with yes, and the remaining 43 said no. So pretty much a mixed bag. Now with that said, a lot of people would choose to reply, but still, it's not clear cut, it really isn't. So quick question you might be asking is, do I reply to negative feedback? Generally not. I generally don't. I think at the end of the day, you've just got to be very careful. Be very up to date with Amazon's terms of service, because it is changing, and I don't want to kind of explain exactly what it is now because they do update. It's the fact that you can't do things like saying, hey, if we give you a full refund, will you remove the feedback? That is against terms of service. So there's no harm in asking them to, if it's been resolved and if they felt happy with it and they want to remove the feedback, they can. But what you can't do is you cannot pressure your customer in. So what I'd really recommend do is read Amazon's terms of services, just make sure you're fully up to date, and then follow those guidelines. What I don't want to say is do this exact step now, because it is changing. And we've seen that again with how we request feedback in the past. So just be up to date with Amazon's terms of service, but don't pressure the customer, and just make sure you give a great service. Now that leads me nicely on to chapter number 6, top tips for you. So first things first, you can use that public reply feature to, reply to feedback. Just be very mindful, and also make sure that you're within terms of service when dealing with customers. But for you, obviously demonstrate, willingness to solve problems and create a great customer experience that's what Amazon wants. But obviously within terms of service of Amazon. Now for you, number two, what I'd really recommend is aim for a high rating. We talked about it earlier. A new seller with a low rating, low feedback count against a high seller, same fulfillment option, same price, and lots of feedback is generally going to get the buy box more often. So aiming for a higher rating, aiming for more feedback is going to really help you. And as a result, because number one, it's going to give more trusting for sellers, or the buyers, should we say, but also as well, it's going to improve the likelihood that you're going to get the buy box. Now, the third top tip for you is I would, first things first, always for everything which is like a 3 or below, I would be going to that automated process, regardless of whether it's filmed by Amazon, because sometimes it gets through. It's absolutely fine. Now, the next thing I'd really recommend for you is then challenge the case through the ID. So what do I mean by this? If Amazon has not allowed you, or should we say the automated process has failed, raise a case. If you've removed seller feedback, create a case on Amazon Seller Central and go to them and say, hey, this is a fulfillment option. I would like you to review it, because a lot of times you can get them removed that way because the automated process hasn't worked. So create a case, use the Seller Central ID or the sale ID and ask them to remove that feedback. Now, what I will say is after all of that, understanding how to request removal of feedback on Amazon is super important. But the one thing you might want to think about is understanding more about how to operate in Amazon Seller Central. So I'll leave a video around here, a playlist called Amazon Seller Central, which is going to help you understand what you need to do. And it's a series of videos I've created showing you different issues and processes we use in my business to help us absolutely smash Amazon and obviously stay up to date day to day. What I will say is hopefully you've liked this video. If you have, give me a big thumbs up. And hey, if you want to see more, do hit that subscribe button down below. But from me, Thomas Parkinson and FastTrackFBA, thank you very much.